Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good. Hello, everyone. Try this again. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock in the morning here, Wednesday morning, January the 4th. I'm glad to be here. I'm just putting the chat room open. I'm having trouble with my connection and my computer this morning. I'm glad to be here. This is One Shot to Be a Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And this is my healing journey here in the morning, so you have to listen at your own discretion. You know, I'm talking about abuse. Abuse is a sensitive subject, and you have to know what's good for you to listen to. If you're a survivor and you're just starting out on your healing journey, you have to be very, aware of what you're okay to listen to and what may trigger you and whatnot. So if you feel like the show might bother you and topics of abuse might bother you, then you need to turn the show off. And young people 18 and under, I just ask that you have an adult listen to the show with you, and they can help you make a decision whether you should be listening or not. And because my shows have a lot of adult content on them, and it is really dealing with the issues, but really, a lot of mature material. So if you're 18 and under, just have an adult listen to the show with you, and that way you can make sure that it's okay for you to listen to it. It's something age appropriate for you. Because my shows are definitely not for younger children. I put a discretionary warning on my show page for all of my shows, because I'm talking about abuse, and abuse is a serious issue. It's a serious subject, and I really don't like to sugarcoat it, minimize it, or anything else. That's what the world is doing. That's what society is doing, and that's what abusers do. They just want to minimize it, make it look like it's not that bad, and it's not that big of a deal. But it's a huge problem in this world. Always has been, always will be, until people change their hearts, and change the way that they feel about children. And people just need to stop being so evil and so hurtful and hateful and towards children, right? This is absolutely ridiculous. There's no excuse for abuse. When I'm talking about my own healing journey here in the morning, I'm really bringing out my own issues that I'm dealing with here. One child abuse survivor to another, but the issues of child abuse, this is absolutely ridiculous that this even happens, that people would do these things to children anywhere in the world. I don't know what's going on in their minds. I don't know what's going on in their hearts. I lived with this my whole life, and I still question my parents' motives and why they did what they did, just out of sheer hatred and out of sheer ignorance and sheer evil, as far as I'm concerned. And so this week I'm sort of looking at, man's way versus God's way, with some articles that I found on a BCF, Biblical Counseling Foundation or Federation manual. These are PDFs and whatnot, but I found them from Emmanuels.org, www.emmanuels, IMMANUELS, Emmanuels. It's a church website, but they have a great bunch of information there for people who are interested in biblical counseling, people who are interested in becoming a biblical counselor. So it's for both, So I'm using that for my healing journey now and looking through, because I'm looking at this in a biblical perspective now, because I'm studying to become a biblical counselor, NANC certified Luthetic counselor. So I'm doing this for two different reasons. Just for one is for myself, so that I can heal and finally finish the last leg of my healing journey. And the other reason is so I can learn how to help other people who are interested in biblical counseling and who would like to get some help as far as biblical counseling goes. So that's what I'm working on. So thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it. The chat room's open now, and we'll get right into this. I'm just going to bring up these PDFs. And yesterday and the day before, I was just Tuesday and Monday, I was just talking about the issues that, what's going on in men's hearts, with people's hearts, not just men's hearts, but, women, men, children, doesn't matter who they are. What's going on in people's hearts, that they could do these horrible things to their family, to their children, to their loved ones, to their husbands, to their wives, to anybody. Like, I don't understand why people have to be so evil and hateful. And growing up in the situation that I did, which I've been talking about here for 2 years, nearly 900 shows later, I'm still asking the same question. You know what I mean? It's like, why? Why did this happen? Why did this, and not just for me, but why did this happen? Why do people do these things to children? So it's not like I'm having a pity party, woe is me sort of thing, and I'm the only one that was ever abused. That's ridiculous. The issue is that I'm able to wrap my head around why people do these things, why they have it in their heart to hurt another person like that, and not apologize and not try to make it right. People do stupid things and they do make mistakes, but it's just when they don't care and they don't apologize and they don't change the way that they're dealing with things, and they continue to hurt people and they continue to stay in the same trap of trying to meet their own needs and hurting their family members and hurting other people around them. It's absolutely ridiculous. What I found very interesting was this one article that was talking about, are we victims of our environment? And that's where we left off yesterday. I wanted to read through some of it and just explain kind of what I was, it takes a look at what I was looking at, which is really taking personal responsibility. You know, my parents never took responsibility for what they did. They never did, even my mom never did, even on her deathbed. She did say she was a horrible mother, but she never said, "Oh, I'm so sorry for what I did," or, you know, "I didn't mean to hurt you," or anything like that. Like, she would never take responsibility for that, because that would have meant that she would have had to lump herself in there with my dad as being one of the abusers in the home. My dad has never taken responsibility because he blames the devil, he blames society, he blames. He doesn't even blame his own parents. Like, he just blames the devil and the 1960s and all this, right? The 1970s. Oh, it was the era. It was the times, you know. And so it's kind of like, you know, man's victim mentality versus personal responsibility. I think it's kind of interesting. They said, are we victims of our environment? They said about 100 years ago, the founder of a modern psychological view theorized that a person responds to his or her environment because of instinctual impulses or drives that originate in childhood. And in this view, we see clearly man's natural propensity towards self-gratification. It's all about the self, meeting his self-needs. Like my dad, you know, the only reason he raped my mother was because he wanted to meet his own needs, you know. Like my mother had, as far as we know, 10 or 11 babies. It could have been more. But 3 of them, or possibly there could have been more, you know. Like, she only talks about the 3 that were between me and my brother, who was 7 years older than me, and my sister was 5 years older than me. But there were 3 babies in between me and my brother Howard, who was 7 years old. They were born stillborn. So 3 of us made it. My brother Howard. This is going through all the children. You know, like my mom had 7 living children, and then 3 were born stillborn. So she would have had 10 babies, and probably more. You know, my dad was continually, like, you know, forcing himself on her. My mother wasn't supposed to be having any children after my brother Howard came along. And then she had Kathy a couple of years later, and then 5 years later had me. But in between there, my dad was raping her because he wanted to get his needs met. This is where this all comes down to, these selfish desires, these, you know, I'm going to get my way. I'm going to get my needs met, right? No matter what I have to do. So he didn't care that he was hurting her. And he didn't care that the doctors were telling him to leave her alone because she was so physically ill and physically sick that she wasn't able to carry another child. And when she had me, it was iffy. You know, like, I almost died and I was born stillborn. They had to, not stillborn, I was born preemie. They had to take me out because I would have been born stillborn. They had to take me out really early. So almost 3 months early because of my mom was very sick and so I was very sick, right? So the issues are, as people, men, women, whoever, trying to meet their own needs, their own self-gratification. It's kind of like, you know, that sort of just puts in my mind, you know, what was going on in my brother's head, like when he raped and sodomized me. I mean, how can you do something like that unless you're just trying to meet your own needs? Like, he was trying to meet his own lust and his own sexual gratification because, I don't know why, because he couldn't go out and get his own girlfriend. He was 21 years old. You know what I mean? Like, he couldn't go out and find somebody who was his own age, you know, who was interested in having sexual relations with him. No, so he had to rape me and he had to sexually use me, right? Well, that's just absolutely ridiculous, but that's what he did. And the issue is that's why people do what they do. And that's why there's a whole lot of sick perverts and pedophiles out here who sexually use children. They are sick. They're very sick. Because anybody who would do that to a child is very sick. And it's incredibly wrong. It's not right, never will be right. But there's people lobbying the government trying to get it to be okay. Adult-child sexual relationships. This makes me sick to my stomach, and we need to squash that. And anybody that's got a voice needs to stand up and start speaking out against that, because that is absolutely unacceptable. Of course, you know, it's since time began. It's been going on for thousands and thousands of years. People have been using children sexually for many reasons, and, you know, whether it's ritualistic or whether it's, you know, witchcraft or whether it's just to meet their own stupidity, their own sexual desires, which is absolutely sick and twisted. It's not okay. It never will be okay. But this is where I know the Bible makes total sense to me. You know what I mean? Because it is an issue of the heart. What's going on in a person's heart? The reason I guess I'm so in tune with this stuff is because I grew up in hell, and I knew what it was like to be in hell. I knew what it was like to have this hellish stuff going on around me, and and have these horrible feelings of being in hell, because it was hell on earth. I tell you that. It wasn't hell. It wasn't the eternal hell, but it was hell on earth. It was close enough to hell for me, and I tell you. I started to quite obviously, since I was a child, question what's going on in my parents' hearts, what was going on in my family's hearts, and I knew what was going on in my heart. I was just broken. I was a broken person, But the Lord fixed that, and that's why I'm God, and I do believe in God. Absolutely, I do. To me, there's no reason why a person wouldn't. But there are people that don't want to admit it or to accept that there is a God, or maybe that there is a God that we can have a relationship with. There's so many people who don't believe that, and hey, you know what? That's their own thing. You know what I mean? For me, I totally believe it because I was in hell, and I've met God twice. I mean, I personally, spiritually met Him a couple of times, and I know He's real, and I know that Jesus is real, and I know that the whole thing is real. But there's people that will deny it, but whatever. That's their own thing. But for me, I know for a fact that it's real. And so the issue is what's going on in people's hearts. You know what I mean? Like people say, oh, there's no hell. There's no hell. You can just do whatever you want. You're not going to pay any price for it. You're not going to pay any eternal price for it. I don't agree with that at all. And the reason being is because if you've ever been that far down and that far down into the pits of hell, then you know, like for myself, that there is a hell. And that it does exist, and that people, I just totally believe it because it makes sense to me. Why would we know about it? Why would we even have the propensity to question it or ask the question? You know what I mean? This is not something that people just dreamed up. You know what I mean? The people are spiritually driven to do horrible things. People hear from the devil. There's parents out there that kill their children because they say, "Oh, God told me to kill my children." See, my dad used to do that. My dad used to threaten to kill us all at night, especially at night. Like he'd be like walking around the house going, "I should kill us all because that's what God would want. We're all from the devil. We're all devil seed." Talking, because my dad was schizophrenic as well as spiritually so devoid of God. You know what I mean? And he felt that his whole life and his whole family was just a seed of the devil because he was married to this devil woman because my parents hated each other and they were always talking to each other about, well, if you're going to heaven, then I'd rather go to hell because I don't want to go to heaven with you. I'd rather be in the opposite place. They were both always talking about stuff like that. And my dad was very much mentally ill, psychologically ill. And he was always walking around, I should just kill us because that's what God would want. And all this. And I used to wonder which nights it's going to be because, he used to say this on a regular basis. And, he was very much spiritually attacked all the time by demons and the devil. He'd be like, the demons are getting me. My dad was very much spiritually attacked all the time by evil forces. And so, I grew up with a great understanding of what evil is because my parents were evil. And so I also know what the opposite is. In order to know what real evil is, in order to know what real love is, you kind of have to know what the opposite is. And I know what love is. And love is not hurting your children. Love is not hurting people. Love is not raping people. Love is not trying to get your own needs met to the point where you're going to hurt somebody to do it, running over people, stomping on people, lying and cheating and trying to get ahead of people all the time, whether it's work situation or whatever. This is all stuff that's coming from a heart that is full of self-gratifying stuff. This is like, I need to get my needs met, and I don't care who I hurt to do it. Well, there's a world full of people out there like that. And my parents were no different. They were both trying to get their needs met. My mom, she just wanted to be loved. You know what I mean? To be honest with you, I think her biggest problem was that she was just a victim, and she was a victim herself all her life. She just finally gave up and became so angry about it that the anger spilled out onto her children, which was mostly me. But the issue is, this is stuff that's going on in people's hearts. This whole self-gratification stuff. And also that, men think that there's no sense of, there's no hope, since man's doomed to follow his drives and these desires, these self-gratification stuff, that they're doomed and that they can't change, right? That these problems, are just there, like that they make up excuses. Like lots, my mother used to say stuff like, well, this life will never change, because we used to try to help her out. She was depressed. She was manic depressive, diagnosed bipolar. And when they were brought up on charges, both my parents were brought up on child abuse charges. I had to go to court and had to take psych tests in order just to see if we could remain in the home or not. And so, they were told to get help. They needed counseling and therapy and all, but they only went to a couple counseling sessions and that was it. But this is the kind of stuff that, my mother would say, well, I'm a victim and I'm just always going to be a victim, and this life is horrible. She wanted to kill herself. She was always talking about killing herself, and she was quite often depressed and talking about the fact that she should have just killed herself, or she should kill herself, past tense, present tense, or that she should have killed me, or she should have killed her husband or somebody. She was always talking about death, murder, suicide, stuff like that. And so, we used to try to help her out, and she would just say, this is just my life. This is just my life. This is the way it's going to be. She didn't have any room in her heart to change or to embrace something different. And my dad didn't either. My dad was just so screwed up. He used to go to church and be so happy with his church buddies and the people he went to church with. And he would be like, that's why I was totally not a Christian I was totally not. I was angry with God, and I didn't like Christians, and I was not into reading the Bible until 5 years ago when I met the Lord. Amen. And so, I couldn't get into it because my dad abused us, and he was a Christian. And so I couldn't, see, I just didn't buy into the whole thing, you know what I mean? And I still don't, because there's a whole lot of Christians out there who go to these churches who have a heart that is not full of love. And they don't care about people. They don't care about anybody but meeting their own needs too. There's a whole section of the body of Christ that's the same way. And it's because they haven't really judged themselves. You know what I mean? They haven't taken a look at what's going on in their own heart. They're just judging everybody else. And God's the judge. But the issue is that, what is it? Why do people think that they're going to get away with doing these horrible things? That there isn't some eternal, eternal judgment? Because people, for some people, they just think, oh no, life is just life, and we're just creatures on the earth, and this is all just natural stuff, and there's no such thing as a God or an afterlife, and we can do whatever we want. Well, it doesn't matter to me if they believe that or not. What still gives them the right to do that? What makes people think it's okay to do these things? Well, if they were on the receiving end and they were being beaten up, tortured, and psychologically tortured and sexually used, they wouldn't like it. So what's going on in people's hearts? It's like, okay, they wouldn't like it, so why are they doing it? My mother didn't like to be abused. Well, why did she continue on the cycle? Out of sheer hatred and sheer ignorance. You know what I mean? Like, this is absolutely unacceptable. So whether you believe in God or not, doesn't matter. In the long run, hey, it doesn't matter to me. You know what I mean? The issue is like, does it make it okay? No, it doesn't. It will never be okay. So whether a person believes in God or not, doesn't matter. The issue is the reason why there's so much evil and twisted stuff going on the planet is because men's hearts are evil. And they can only think of doing evil things, beating on their wives, beating on their husbands, sleeping around, torturing their children, sexually using somebody else's child or their own children, making videos and putting them all over the web. I mean, how sick and twisted can you possibly be? There's people out there, I saw an article yesterday on Facebook, and yesterday morning, that really bummed me out. And it should bum everybody out. It should call to be depressed when you see something like that. But there's a whole section of people in society that won't care about that. And then there's a whole section of society that would think, hey, I need to do that, because they're evil. They're sick and twisted. But this one article on Facebook was that a 1-month-old baby had been raped and sodomized and died because of the injuries. And I'm sitting here thinking, a 1-month-old baby? Who would do that to a child? Period. I don't care how. Who would do that to a child? Who would rape and sodomize a child and kill a child like that? That is so sick and twisted. And immediately I thought of that baby, and I thought, oh my God, A little 1-month-old baby being sodomized and raped and dying like that, just from bleeding to death, internal injuries. And I was raped and sodomized, but at the age of 8 years old. Right? My body still couldn't take that. You know, I had all kinds of problems because of that, and bleeding and infection and just very sick and twisted in my mind because of it. And the issue is that people would say, well, it's no big deal. No, it's a big deal. You know what I mean? A baby's been murdered because someone decided to rape and sodomize a 1-month-old baby. Well, I'm sorry, but that's evil. And I don't care whether a person's God or not. That is evil. And what is going on in that person's heart? And as a Christian, I'm supposed to pray because that guy, that person, that guy who did that, as far as I'm concerned, is hellbound. And you know, God sent Jesus here for these sick types. This is who Jesus came for. He didn't come to save the righteous. He didn't come to save people that didn't need to be saved. The reason Jesus came was to say that, you know what, man, I'm here for those sick individuals who need God in their life, and they need to know that they're going to hell. And I'm here to be the propitiation for that. You know, and so it's hard to justify that because there's people out there saying, how could it be? How could it be? Because they're doing these things because they have evil in their hearts. If that person had a good heart, they would never have raped and sodomized that baby to meet whatever kind of satisfaction, whatever was going on, why they chose to do that. Sometimes people hurt children just to get back at the other parent, like the mother or the dad, you know what I mean? But the issue is it doesn't make it okay. No, it doesn't make it okay because the little baby's dead. And this is the kind of stuff that goes through my mind after being abused as a child myself and realizing that hardly anybody really cares. And nobody really can care because they can't put themselves in my shoes. You know what I mean? Or they won't, whether they would or they wouldn't. You know, and what I've been doing for 2 years on this show, and the big reason why I've been doing these shows, as well as writing books about abuse and really talking publicly about abuse, about child abuse, is because I want people to know from an inside source of what it's like to be abused and then have to deal with the aftermath. Well, that little 1-month-old baby who's been raped and killed and sodomized and killed, that little baby's voice is silenced. They will never be able to tell you what it felt like. They will never be able to tell you and explain how horrible of a situation that was for them. But I can tell you from an 8-year-old perspective of how horrible it was to be raped and sodomized. So that's why I'm doing what I do. It's not a self-pity party or anything like that. I'm still dealing with issues in my heart. I'm trying to not have hatred towards my parents is what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to allow love to come into my life because I wasn't brought up in love. I wasn't brought up in a decent, loving home. So what I'm trying to do is learn how to incorporate love into my life, you know what I mean, into my heart, for myself and for life. You know, I can love other people. It doesn't matter whether or not I can love myself and I can enjoy this life or not. That's what I'm working on. But the thing is like, you know, I'm doing this on purpose, with a real purpose to show people that this is not okay. And why are people doing this? Like, why would anybody do this? Why would anybody rape a 1-month-old baby? Because they're sick. So they better believe in God. Because these types of people are heading straight for hell. They're already there. They already got one foot in the door. You know what I mean? Unless they repent and change their way, which means repent means to have remorse for what you've done and to feel bad about it, absolutely. And then to change your ways, because repent means to turn around and go the other way. It doesn't mean to be like, oh, well, I did what I did, too bad, I enjoyed it, but my brother was dying and literally killing himself and told me on the phone how much he enjoyed raping me and sodomizing me and using my body sexually. I mean, he didn't have any remorse. He didn't have any sense of that he did wrong and that he had literally hurt me. You're a 21-year-old man. My brother was like 6 feet tall, and he was a 21-year-old man who was 6'2", and I was like a little 8-year-old girl who was very small for her age because I was very sick. And you know, this guy raped me. You know what I mean? And used me sexually for almost a year. And he didn't think he hurt me. He all he could think of was how great he enjoyed it. He could not put himself into my place and see the pain and the torture and the anguish that it did to my body as well as my heart. And the fact that it made me barren, unable to have children. So he didn't care about me. He didn't care about what happened to me. He was very much into the perversion and the sick, twisted feelings of self-gratification that he got from doing that. And so this is what's wrong with people's hearts. They're purely, truly evil. And you can't tell me any different, because I'll argue to the day I die, because I know that there is truly evil people on the planet, and I grew up with some of the most evil people on the planet. So, yeah, anybody who would do these things to a child is evil, as far as I'm concerned. We're not talking about discipline. We're not talking about spanking. We're talking about people systematically destroy their children and their families because out of hatred, out of nothing but sheer hatred, to say that, you know what, I hate you so much that I'm going to bash your head in. That's what my mother hated my guts. And she used to tell me, I hate you. You're a rape child. You're nothing to me. I can't love you. How could I love you? And she would beat the shit out of me. And she didn't care. She would laugh. She thought it was great. That is evil. There's nothing but evil in that. You know what I mean? So people want to talk to me about abuse, want to talk to me about what's going on in people's hearts when they do these horrible things to children. If you're ever wondering, you can come and talk to me, because I can tell you all about it. Like, this is what's going on. Men and women and people on this planet, the reason that all this horrible stuff is happening, and there's wars and there's problems, is because men's hearts are evil. Mankind has evil in their hearts. But we also have a tiny little spark of this thing called love. And that's just a little bit of God that He gave us. He gave us part of Himself so we would know Him by love, through love, right? And then what does that encompass? Goodness and mercy. Well, there's no mercy and compassion going on while somebody's raping a 1-month-old baby. And there's no mercy and compassion going on while my 21-year-old brother was raping me. You know what I'm saying? That is just for evil. So there's a real big difference between evil and good. And I would love to argue this with somebody. You know what I mean? Like, there's all kinds of people out there that just like to just excuse this stuff away with some sorry, excuse of maybe some book that they read somewhere. I don't care, because I know what the real thing is all about. And I know what's going on in men's hearts, because I experienced it firsthand. Evil, right? And so I also know that there has to be the opposite of that, which is love and goodness and mercy. And why are people not treating their children with kindness and love and mercy and compassion? How could you possibly hurt a child and be okay with it? Like on purpose, hurt a child and think it's okay. No, I'm sorry, it's not okay. It never will be okay. And I'm going to continue to speak out against this stuff as long as I live. But we'll pick up the rest of this article tomorrow. Same time, same place. I'm off this week, so I'll have time to do this show at this time. So, if you're having troubles and you're struggling, there's no way I can do this. I am so stressed, or I'm so uptight about what happened. I need help. You get help. It is literally up to you to get help. No one's going to reach in there and help you. You have to do it. You have to pick up the phone and you have to make a phone call. If you can't find somebody to talk to that's close by, or a friend, you phone a crisis line. You phone a counselor, therapist, group support. If you don't trust those guys, I don't. Group support's awesome. And, whatever you do, make sure you get some help. Like, do not allow yourself to suffer on, to continue to suffer on in silence and on your own, especially if you're not okay, right? Some people are okay to do that. But if you're not, and you're not, then you need to be the one who reaches out, because people aren't going to reach in. You know what I mean? Very rarely will somebody even notice that you're suffering or that you're having a hard time. We're so good at hiding that, especially as adult survivors, right? So make sure you get some help and do not allow yourself to be destroyed by this stuff, right? Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.